Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, it is that time. It is that time. We are here. It's Memorial Day, and we're going to get cracking on yet another, go to the intro panel, yet another day in the life behind the scenes at the Old Humble Distilling Company. I am the Old Humble guy himself, Joe Breida, the Old Humble guy. I own this here establishment. Those are my two pot stills, and this behind me here is my baby still. I've actually got a project coming up with my baby still. I'm going to build as a proof of concept and a proof of skill my a water tank for or fermentation tank for the baby still. That way, we'll be able to get cracking on some smaller projects that I had in mind over the course of the summer. In time for our winter Wonderland Festival, if you will. So this is going to be featured very closely in an upcoming project that we're going to be doing. It's actually going to be probably close to the, well, you don't need to see that. It's going to be close to the size of one of these barrels here. But, you know, that's for down the road, few weeks down the road. But today what we're going to be doing is the same thing we've been doing the last few days. I've got 5, 10, 15, 20 more cases of whiskey to box up. And today we're going to do 5 more cases of our straight whiskey. And then the next time I come in, I'll do 5 cases of the bourbon, 5 cases of the rye. And if we need to do 5 more cases of the whiskey, we'll do 5 more cases of the whiskey. But right now, a word from our sponsor.
Is your bar looking a little ordinary? Is it lacking something awesome? Well, head out to your local liquor store and pick up something extraordinary. Grab a bottle of Old Humble Straight Whiskey or Old Humble Special Reserve. They're clean, smooth, easy drinking whiskeys that taste the way whiskey should taste. From humble beginnings to an extraordinary finish, Old Humble whiskeys are what your bar needs today. Walk tall, be awesome, and drink humble. Old Humble Straight Whiskey and Old Humble Special Reserve. Get yours today.
And yes, I know, my sponsor is me. That's kind of an ongoing joke with me, that a word from our sponsors needs a word from me. But I hired our ad twins there to give us the word from our sponsor, because the ad twins are prettier than I am. They read words good. And that's an old commercial, and I need to update that commercial, and I have not done that yet, but I will. So get off my back. Those are my corks. Time to get the bottles out. It is a balmy 96 degrees outside, or 93 degrees when I came in. Dustin's in the house. Cheers, Top Shelf Dustin. Oh, another thing I wanted to note: we are $2 and like 70 cents away from my next monetization payment. I am super duper excited about that. The channel is growing nicely. I'm very pleased with the growth of the channel. We're getting, the last couple of months, we've gotten about 300 subscribers a month. 2, 4, 6. I need 10 rows of 6. We've gotten about 300 subscribers. My goal for the year was to hit 4,000 subscribers. And that was going to be something like 1,500, 1,200 subscribers or something like that. Somewhere between 1,500, 1,200 and 1,500 subscribers. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times 6, that's 60. That's 5 cases. 4. And I thought that was going to be a fairly pedestrian goal because that was the same growth we had last year. We added about 1,300 subscribers, give or take. 1,400, 1,300 subscribers, something like that. We were at like 2,700 at the end of the year. We were able to get the channel monetized in August of last year. And since then, I've focused on mostly shorts because those were getting the most traction. You know, I do a regular video and like 25 people would watch it, and that's no fun. Do a short, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, sometimes more would watch the shorts. So I enjoy. I do the shorts more. I guess a little bit more exposure for the brand. That's the whole point of the channel, is exposure for the brand. But anyway, getting the exposure. I thought we would get about. The goal was to go for 4,000 by the end of the year, and then February, we got like, I don't know. I don't remember what the exact number was in February. Something like 200 or something like that, maybe 150 subscribers. And then in March, we got 300 subscribers. And then I was looking at it in March. I'm like, we might be able to get 5,000 subscribers this year. Like that was the stretch goal. There's a difference between 100 subs a month and 200 subs a month. I didn't think we'd hit that. But now it's looking like at the pace we've been going, it looks like we might hit 4,000 subscribers next month, which means at that same pace, 3 months down the road, come on, get that air bubble out of there. There we go. Air bubble's out. All right. At that same pace of 300 subs a month, that's June, July, August, September. That's September to get 5,000. It's just another 1,000 subscribers at that point. So I am eagerly, whoops. Well, I just dropped a bottle. I'm going to have to fish that out. See, those bottles sink when they're not full or when they fill up with water, but it's just glass, so. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you lose a bottle to the vat, but it's just glass. It'll come out fine in the end. But anyway, that's the growth of the channel, and I'm super duper excited about that because it means the monetization wheel should start spinning faster. Should start spinning faster, and instead of waiting 5 months for, they pay you in $100 increments. So instead of waiting $5 for $100 or 5 months for $100, that wheel starts cranking over a little bit faster. Maybe it goes 3 months. Ultimately, the goal is to get $100 a month as revenue from the channel, so I could then put that money back into the channel to do more marketing on behalf of the shop. I want to be able to use those funds to get equipment. Use those funds to hire people for production staff. We're doing one show or one monthly video that's 5 to 10 minutes long, whatever. Do an actual behind the scenes production video where we take all this hourly footage, 2-3 hours worth of footage, and cut it down into a 10-minute vignette of making whiskey or whatever. So instead of a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a 2-hour live set of one task that I'm doing, we can do a 5-minute set of everything that I do through the process over the course of the production cycle. Tomorrow I'm going to be completely out of pocket because tomorrow I'm working a runoff election here in Harris County, which of course is always a fun day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12. I don't want to have 12. We'll go with 10. 5 rows of 10. Not 5 rows of 10. 5 rows of, maybe 6 rows of 10. Yeah. Because this is 6 rows of 10. Anyway, it's always a fun time. I love doing election work. I love working the polls on election days. It makes me very happy to be a part of the process and a part of the system to make sure that our elections are free and fair and without tamper and without interference. To see the process as it goes on behind the scenes is also pretty fascinating. The machines we use, the tabulation methods, I spent a week in uh, for our water control and improvement district doing doing an old school election. Usually these things get wrapped into the Harris County election office, but the Harris County election office is under attack by our state Secretary of State, our state Attorney General rather, not the Secretary of State, because politics in Texas, blah blah blah. But instead of doing this with machines and computers and all the newfangled fancy equipment, we did it old school style with a paper registration booklet, paper ballots, hand marked paper ballots. So, like, put a check mark next to your preferred candidate type of thing. It was fascinating. It was fun. It was a glimpse back into the time as recently as the 1990s. No, that's not true. The 1980s here in Harris County. By the 90s, they were using the little dial machines. You get a little machine with a dial, and you put it in the little kiosk, and you dial in who you want to go for your election, whatever. Those are really suspect machines. Everybody complained about those machines, because you always heard reports every year that my vote got changed. It never happened, because there was never any evidence that that ever happened. But it was really hard to do an audit on the paper trail because there was no paper trail. You would see a video, not video, you'd see a digital representation on the screen, say confirm your vote. You'd say yes, confirm the vote, and then you were done. And you walked out of the room. That was it. So there was never any physical evidence of you're printing out your selections for the election. But now the new machines, the next generation machines that we have, actually print out a paper ballot, confirming everything that you put into the digital machine. And if that sends out results that are not the same as what you put into the machine, you get a chance to review it as it prints out what your selections were. Then you can call the election judge and have them destroy the ballot, reset you in the system to show that you haven't voted yet, and then you can go through and do it again. But of course, that also raises all kinds of other questions, like why did the machine do what the machine did? Did you screw up? Did the machine screw up? Who screwed up? But that we've never had that happen. In 6 or 7 election cycles that I've done this, we've never had it happen. And anybody who says it as, they're lying, because the machines don't do that. But it still takes a certain amount of trust in the data, because the machines can say one thing and print out another thing, and the data doesn't have to equal what it prints out. It requires a certain level of trust, because ultimately, there's two separate tabulations of the data. Because once you take that little piece of paper that prints out all your stuff, it has a little QR code on it, and then you scan it through another machine that counts your vote, that counts the existence of your vote, one, and then counts who you voted for, tabulates all the selections. So at the end of the day, all they do is take the hard drives and plug it into a machine, and everything gets tabulated like that. It's a very efficient, very cool, very smart system. And if there needs to be a paper, if there needs to be a paper audit trail, there's a paper audit trail. That the data matches the paper. The machines ultimately say that there's 100 ballots were cast, let's say, at that particular polling station. 100 ballots were cast. Here's who they were cast for. There's a reconciliation of the paper ballots to make sure that there were indeed 100 ballots handed out. and then the tabulation is what the tabulation is what the tabulation is. And if they have to question the results, 57 for this guy, 38 for that dude, and whatever, 10 for the other guy, they can actually pull out the paper ballots and go through and say, this dude, that dude, that dude, that dude, the other guy, this dude, and they can break it up that way. So there's actually a paper trail. So there's two machines counting the votes, plus humans, counting the existence of the votes. It's a very secure system. It's a very secure system that solves problems that didn't even exist. So I guess it prevents those problems from happening. Because there's just not people going to vote 2, 3, 4, 5 times. There's no value to voting 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's just not happening. Especially when it takes, like it used to. It used to take 45 minutes to an hour to vote. Like, then you have to go to another polling station, which is 20, 30 minutes away. So every time you vote, it would take 2 hours. Ain't nobody got time for that shit. The most you could vote in a day is 6 times. And I guess theoretically you could do that if you had the names of people. You had 6 fake IDs, but 6 votes is not going to swing an election. Even if you were able to organize enough people to make 6 votes per person, say you organized 1,000 people, you know what kind of an organization it requires to organize 1,000 people to vote 5 times, 4 or 5 times in a single day? That is a hell of an organization. That's the type of organization that leaves a footprint, and those organizations cannot function secretly. It takes funding, it takes leadership, it takes field organizers. That shit's not happening. It's just not happening. It's illogical at best. And if you voting 6 times does not sway an election, why would you do it? Just to prove you can? That's dumb. Like, you ain't got nothing better to do? It's the last case. See, filling the bottles doesn't take very long at all. 5 nice cases right here ready to go. The next couple of steps don't take particularly long amount of time. I do need to get box labels for my rye. I'm going to contact my distributor and say tell them I'm hoping they pick up 10 cases of everything, and I will have 10 cases of our special reserve ready to go in 1 week's time, so they can pick up the last 10 for their inventory. And then I can put my people to work selling down their inventory again. And we should get another order, a 10, 20, 30, and then 10 more for 40 cases. It's not quite enough. Still need more, but it's enough to keep things going. I miss the days before the almighty algorithm. You know what I mean? Back when we all shared information that was like from the same source. But like my front page on YouTube and your front page on YouTube don't look the same. And there's a reason for that. It's the algorithm. And that's a good thing in some respects, and it's a bad thing in other respects. Because it used to be, I know I'm showing my age, but it used to be we'd sit down in front of a TV, 25 million of us every night, 60 million of us, between 25 and 50 million every single night. And we would watch one of the 3 major nightly news programs. And we would all participate in the same information economy. We would all participate in the same sharing of knowledge, the same imagery, the same pictures, the same everything. That's what we would do. We were a nationwide community. But now the almighty algorithm decides, well, you don't like that, so you're not going to get that. Or this makes you mad, so you will get this. It's not true, but you're going to get it. You were curious about this one thing that one time, so all you're going to get now is that. This is now your personality. Sorry. This is what makes it hard to like research cuckoo things. Or if you get curious about, you know, the Kennedy assassination, you just want to know some information, just want to know some information about the Kennedy assassination. Hell, I said it out loud, so now I'm probably going to get a shit ton of stuff on my phone. And, oh, you were interested in the Kennedy assassination? No, I'm not. Funny you should mention the Kennedy assassination. Let me show you some other weird conspiracy theories that people who have said that are interested in. But that's how our information society goes now, our information economy. If you express interest in this thing, then the almighty algorithm decides, oh, well, if you're interested in that thing, then you're going to be interested in this thing. And, that's not always a great thing. I dropped my stopper on my, excuse me a second. I got to crawl down here. There it is. I dropped this thing. It's a filter for the whiskey. It keeps it off the bottom of the barrel, so I'm not sucking in. Actually, I don't need this out here at all. So I'm not sucking the dregs off the bottom. Sucking the dregs off the bottom. Name of your sex tape. Goodish. Ba-dum-bum. Okay. So that's that. Bottles are filled. But yeah, the almighty algorithm takes us out of a space where we can have discussions about things without naming names. I had what started off to be a very interesting conversation with my son last night. A friend of the family was in attendance. And my son mentioned that his economics teacher has considerable disdain for the policies of Republican economic policies, because it seems that Republican economic policies assume infinite money. And that seemed odd to me, because you usually think of Democrats as assuming that there's infinite money because they could just spend. Because that's the assumption, that's the paradigm, right? That Democrats just spend like crazy because they just assume that there's infinite money and there's no such thing as inflation, and we just spend. And I was thinking about that for a second, and I'm like, you might be onto something, because Democrats will spend, we think, but when you look at the actual history, that's not true. When you look at the actual data, that's not exactly true. But when you look at the policies of the other policies, if you look at the broad panoply of policies, let's just look at it that way. The one group acknowledges that there's only so much to go around, and when you cut taxes for the wealthy, the money goes to the wealthy, but there's only so much money, right? And if you're not producing an infinite amount of money, so the money gets divvied up, and when the money goes, it goes where it's going to go. Is what it is ultimately what happens. And I've never thought of it that way. That trickle down economics assumes an infinite money supply. Ooh, here comes Jet Dust D. Don't want my homepage. You watch some weird stuff. I see. And some Democrats have basically said they believe in infinite money. Actual data says they spend, and cut taxes. Actual data actually says that Republicans spend, and cut taxes. Like actually cite actual numbers, we can do that because we can go back the last, I don't know, 2 decades and look at the expansion of the federal budget and the expansion of federal debt. I mean, the data kind of supports that. You know, when Democrats are presidents, Republicans don't want to spend money. When Republicans are presidents, they want to cut taxes and spend like drunken sailors home on leave. But I don't want to talk about details right now. Just the overall theory, because I didn't have time to dig into it last night while I was talking to my son. And this isn't exactly about the policy itself. This is about the disunity of shared information. Because my friends contribution to the conversation wasn't, well, the policy A versus policy B. Let's talk about the difference and, blah, 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 whatever. His contribution was, well, what about George Soros? Not anything of substance. Just simply, here's a name that I've heard that is a boogeyman, and I'm going to refer to it as a trump card to end the conversation. Because talking about any sort of stuff like this kind of makes him uncomfortable because he participates in a world apparently of make-believe. So his contribution was, well, what about George Soros? And since George Soros has absolutely nothing to do with the notion of an infinite money supply versus a finite money supply versus allocation of resources versus progressive tax policy versus regressive tax policy versus supply side economics versus demand side economics versus any of that shit. He is a donor. That's it. That's what he does. He donates money. I don't even know the name of his fucking super PAC. I have any earthly idea. He's a Democratic fundraiser and donor. But because we live in a world of the almighty algorithm, we live in the world of disunified, we live in a world of disunion of information. We live in a world where people literally participate in different realities based on cookies and search history and videos watched and just things that are said out loud that are picked up by your Alexa box that goes into your search engines and into your research history. Like we'll talk about doing a trip with an RV, and for the next 2 weeks we get RV commercials. It's a thing that happens. And I don't know if it's necessarily a thing that happens like the microphone's listening to us, or if it's a thing that happens like we mentioned RVs and now we just notice this stuff. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe not. I don't know. But we live in this world now where a high school student, a newly minted high school graduate, can say something of relative substance that I'd never heard of, never even considered. This is something to think about at least. One party seems to have policies based on the idea of infinite money. And, that's not an unfair assumption because you could think of fiat money as infinite. You just print more of it. You go into debt, you just print more. You go into debt, you just print more. I mean, why not spend $750 million on the military? You just print more. Why not? We'll just cut taxes, cut revenue, and then print more money. Who cares? Whatever. We'll cut revenue by 10%, and then jack up the defense budget by another 15%, and then print more money. I mean, who cares if we take a budget surplus and turn it into a budget deficit by spending $1 trillion on wars? Why not? But, God forbid, if we're going to give people health care, you got to find out how you're going to pay for that. But if you could put health care on the end of a missile, well, shit, we got money for missiles. We got all the money for missiles, just not health care. We can drop 25 full ride scholarships to Harvard on a air base in Syria, but if you dare want to spend that money on actual 25 full ride scholarships, well, you're just a cuckoo bird crazy pants. We don't have infinite money unless we do have infinite money, and then we have infinite money. But when the interest rates, and during the recovery from the pandemic, or whenever that was, when the interest rates were like 0.01%, negative 5% in some cases, when the price of oil went negative because of the recession, the pandemic-induced recession. I mean, that's the time when you buy shit, right? When interest rates are super duper low, that means money is damn near free and damn near infinite. Borrow the crap out of it. It's not like it's going back into circulation. You're just spending it on transferring it from one fund account to another fund account. But when we talk about money in the economy, it's not infinite. There's a finite amount of money in the economy, unless it's unrealized money. If it's not real money, if it's not real, if it's just unrealized gains, I mean, that kind of is infinite. It's based on, theoretically, real returns in the future. But if your $10 stock goes up to $10,000, that's not really a $9,990 increase in money. That's a $9,990 increase in value. And you can't really turn that into money unless you sell that, and you can only sell it if there's actually value. Or you collateralize it and turn it into a loan. There's that. The box. But the idea, it was an interesting idea, at least, and it was something that I wanted to think about and wanted to talk about. But instead of talking about that, the entire conversation got sidetracked by, well, what about George Soros? What the fuck about George Soros? Who is he? What do you know about him? What's he do? Big fucking whoop. You think Hillary Clinton's going to answer the phone if he calls? Well, maybe. I don't know. She's a private citizen living in Harlem or wherever the fuck the Clintons live. What do I care whose phone call she answers? I mean, do you think the former president's son-in-law is going to answer the phone if Prince Solomon Ali or whatever the fuck his name is, Mohammed bin Salman, calls? Yep. He's going to answer the fucking phone because they're actively doing business together. But who cares? He's not a person in power right now. But if the other guy does get back into power, does that matter? Might matter. I don't know. What did I call him? Muhammad bin Ali? That's not his name. I got to catch up on your chats, Dustin. Hold on. Data cannot distinguish the two parties. Yeah, they all spend and cut taxes. I'm down with that. I'm willing to acknowledge that. They do. There's not a party that doesn't spend more money. The budget goes up by 10% every year. And that's actually one of the things that got me disillusioned about the Tea Party. I was interested. I was invested. I thought it was an interesting possibility. The Tea Party was like, we're actually going to cut the budget. And then they held up the budget process for 6 months, stomping their feet, huffing and puffing, saying, we're going to cut spending. And then they came out with a deal that instead of it going up by 12%, it went up by 11%. And I was like, these fucking assholes. They're not cutting shit. They just cut the growth for 1 year, and then they were done. And that actually hobbled our return, the recession caused by people who assumed that money was infinite, and they borrowed against borrowing. They borrowed against loans that were collateralized so that they could borrow against the loans, because they, I guess, assumed money was infinite, that value would just go up forever until it wasn't, and then it stopped going up. And that's a perfect example of this notion. And it was a policy that was shared by both parties. And that was one of the things that I wanted to take issue with my son, was that it's not a party's policy. Let's talk about the policy rather than the party, because we can talk about the policy and then discuss who adheres to that policy more closely. I mean, if we're talking about that concept, then let's talk about it. But because of the almighty algorithm melting my friend's brain, the discussion didn't get to go that way. The discussion was, but what about George Soros? What about the Jolly Green Giant? Who cares? George Soros doesn't fucking do anything. In fact, I want to do a happy hour. Oh, I was going to catch up. Hang on. Data cannot distinguish the two parties. Data distinguishes the two parties when it comes to results. But no, I'm with you on that one. And arguably there's a reason for that, is that ultimately in the past they would disagree on details. They would argue, bitch, moan. Private industry is better than the government solutions, and the government solutions are better for we need to regulate private industry so that they uncheck capital, blah blah blah. But now it's different, distinctly different. And you can look at results in places like Kansas, where specific policies were put in place, and the damn place nearly goes bankrupt. You can look at results in specific places like Alabama. You can look at results in specific places like Mississippi, Louisiana, vast swaths of Texas. The actual governance metric. You can look at specific data and you can see serious consequences of policies, and you can distinguish the policies between parties that employ them. Up until, I'll say, probably 2008 or 2012. And if you want to go on a larger macro case, you can go, say, as far back as 1983. You can see a distinct diversion in governance results. Poverty, wealth distribution, education levels, consumer debt, wealth concentration, wealth distribution. You can look at all kinds of governance metrics, as I like to call them. Access to healthcare, higher education achievement, people under the poverty line, number of hours you need to work in order to afford a house, in order to afford rent, in order to not be in poverty. Basic governance metrics, things like that, things that we would look at and say, oh, this says it's a good or a bad thing happening. And you can look at correlation between policies, voting patterns, and outcomes. Certainly since the latter part of the first decade of the 21st century, and in a broader macro sense, you can go back to 1983. And probably back to, in some cases, to 1979, where you can say these things are tracking together, these things are tracking together, these things are tracking together, and now there's a diversion. What happened in there? Oh, this is when the Democrat Party failed, and the Republican Party took over, and the liberalism died in 1979 when Reagan won his first election. That was, liberal became a bad word, and Ronald Reagan conservatism, things were great for 20-something years. Anyway, back. You have to look past debt, actual day-to-day. You have to look at debt to look at money supply. The two can't be looked at separate. Oh, yeah, the two absolutely have to be looked at together. Debt, money supply, but also debt, money supply, and also population. If the population is shrinking, then that's a bigger problem. That's a bigger problem when it comes to monetary policy than when the population is growing. I mean, a shrinking population creates all kinds of other issues. Even if it's a growing economy or growing efficiency in an economy, you create all kinds of issues. Just look at Japan, look at Russia, look at the coming apocalypse that's about to happen in China. You've got to marry monetary policy and economic policy with population policy, which, by the way, is one of the many reasons why abortion is not actually about keeping babies keeping babies from being aborted. It's about population growth. But that's a whole nother subject, a whole nother can of worms. A lot of these issues have a patina of one, but it's really another. If we want to have population growth, we go one of two ways. We either have more babies or import more people. And if we're importing people, we're not importing to a large extent. We're not importing people that look like us, because the people that look like us also have falling birth rates. Europe is not a growing economy of people. The people who have growing birth rates are people all over the rest of the world. And anti-abortion policies to a large extent are white supremacy policies, because it's very, 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 those two ideologies go hand in hand of making sure we have babies, but also making sure we have white babies. And this is a policy marriage that goes back 15 years, and the marriage has been getting closer and closer and tighter. And the two groups jumped into bed with each other right around 2012-ish. Gee, I wonder what happened right around 2012-ish to have virulent racists and vehement anti-abortionists jump into bed with each other. Yeah. There is a reason we are where we are today. Anyway, what else? What were we talking about? When someone says, "What?" Are you? When someone says, "What about you're allowed to gut punch?" I know you're allowed to gut punch him, but he's a good friend of mine. I was just really disappointed that he would pipe in with something so nonsensical and silly. Because for every George Soros, there's a Sheldon Adelson. For every Koch brothers, there's a Warren Buffett. For every one on one side, there's another on the other side. Like, well, what about Bill Gates? Well, what about the shithead from PayPal? Not Elon Musk, the other shithead from PayPal. I mean, you got all these people on both sides, and we should be more pissed off about them being able to buy our election and just decide what policies are going to happen than not. And quite frankly, we know they're playing both sides of the coin. We know that they're playing the winning hand. We know that 25 million goes to one side and 20 million goes to the other side, because 20 million doesn't mean shit to these people. They make that in the time it takes me to start talking. They're playing both sides of the coin. They're supporting one team in one state and another team in another state. because they want to be in the good graces of whomever gets into the halls of power. Access to power means everything. We learned that in Star Wars. When the lockpick or safecracker, whatever that dude was, played by Benicio del Toro, opens up the computer on the ship, and it's the arms dealer, and he's dealing on both sides of the conflict. So the only people that get rich in these conflicts are the people that play both sides. Your good guys aren't good guys. They're just guys. I mean, shit, that goes all the way back to Gone with the Wind. Rhett Butler was a smuggler. He smuggled things into the South and he'd sell things to the North. He didn't care. He was making money. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I know, different context, but still. Yes, I am cultured. I read shit and watch movies. Well, I watch movies. I don't just watch movies. I also read shit. Anyway, but yeah, that's what just pisses me off about the algorithm is we are sliced and diced and cut up into little subsets. There's no such thing as a national newspaper anymore. Even if you go to a news site, the front page of the newspaper you see is a different newspaper than I see. We don't participate in the same reality. You know, for some people, our downtowns are on fire. Like, oh, I'm not going to go down there because of all the crazy shit that's going on. What shit? What crazy shit that's going on? What shit? Explain yourself. Well, yeah, but what about George Soros? What about him? Who is he? Who's George Soros? What do you know about the guy? Well, we got to take care of what's going on at the border. Well, what's going on at the border? Explain that. Talk to me. What do you think's going on at the border? Tell me more. Because I honestly don't know what you know. And a lot of times we skip that step because somebody says, well, we got to take care of what's going on at the border. And we say, and you know, the counterpoint to that is, well, what's really going on at the border is, and then you just start talking, and now you're talking past each other because they have an idea of what's happening, but you have no idea what their idea of what's happening is. And you see all these, what they call them climate surveys, not about the climate, mood surveys, where they ask people, is the country going in the wrong direction? And two people can say yes to that question and mean entirely different things. Because the one person thinks, well, because of all that crazy shit going on downtown. And the other person thinks, well, because of these people that think crazy shit's going on downtown. I live downtown. Ain't nothing going on downtown. Or, you know, I live downtown. The hookers give it a certain kind of ambience. Or, yeah, everything's going to shit downtown. I can't drive down Main Street because of all the potholes. But like, there's a reason there's potholes in downtown. Is because they're fixing all the other streets and all the traffic was diverted to Main Street. And then once all the other streets are fixed, they go back and fix Main Street. And so they think everything's going to shit, even though like 11 of the 12 streets in downtown are being fixed simultaneously. We don't know what each other is talking about because the almighty algorithm has sliced us up and diced us up so deep and divided our attention so thoroughly that we think what we see on the internet is real. And my friends, I can tell you, what's on the internet is not real. It is curated for your attention. It is curated specifically for your attention in order to get you to come back and watch ads. In order to get you to come back and buy tokens in your Monopoly Go game or whatever other stupid game you're playing. Whiteout Survival or what was it, Royal King's Rush or whatever it is that keeps coming up. The only Wi-Fi game or the only game that doesn't require Wi-Fi. No ads, no Wi-Fi. Like, yeah, bullshit. That's a lie. But one of my favorites is one of those math snake games where you're a snake of numbered boxes, and it says just simply it shows a video of the game, which I assume a video of the game, and simply has text at the top of it. I paid for this ad. Please download my game. So earnest and truthful. I can't help but appreciate that. I'm not downloading the game, but it's still earnest and truthful, and I truly appreciate that earnest truthfulness. I downloaded the game, or I paid for the ad. Please download this game. Stock is much more real than money is. World of quantitative easing, fractional reserve banking. Agree to disagree. Stock isn't anymore. I mean, the value of a stock, I mean, you can make stock real by selling it, but you can't buy a house with stock. You can't buy groceries with stock unless it pays a dividend, then it kind of turns into real money. But yeah, anyway, your broader point, New York Times, CNN, Fox News, you and I will see the same sum screen, at least at the top. Oh yeah, they might have the same story, but we're not going to see the same headlines. They've got it cut down to the point where even if you go to where two different people can pull up the same story and they have like 2 or 3 different headlines attached to that story. So some people will see headline A, some people will see headline B, and they data test that to see which one does better, and then they work that in order to improve what it is that they put, improve the stickiness of the headlines on their site, because obviously they want to get clicks, and it's not purely clickbait. I mean, this is data-driven analytics of A/B testing for headlines. It may be the same text in the story. It may be the same story, but it's going to be a different headline. And it could be a different headline that is intended to either piss you off or make you happy or piss you off in a different way, or then it would piss me off, or, whatever. And with the rise of AI-generated stories and AI-generated headlines, that becomes even more critical, because now, it becomes harder and harder to read a story and try to find out what the kernel of truth is in that story. Because it could be, like I saw a story just yesterday, as a matter of fact. Pilot bails out of plane, leaving 6 behind. Like, that sounds insane. The pilot bailed out of the plane. Another headline was, pilot bails out of plane with parachute, leaving 6 behind. Another one, pilot jumps out of skydiver's airplane before it crashes. That one didn't say that there were 6 people left behind. You crack open any one of those stories, it was a terribly written story, probably an AI-generated story. But you open any one of those stories and you read for a little bit, and you find out it was an airplane. It was a skydiving airplane. There were 6 skydivers in the airplane plus the pilot. All of the skydivers got out of the plane. The pilot jumped out last. Nobody died. The plane crashed. Very misleading headline. Very badly written story. But 3 different headlines, depending on the site you went to, and what it was you were looking for. Just how pissed off you wanted to get. But that's only one example. Bill Walton? Walmart Bill Walton? No, that was Sam Walton. Who's Bill Walton? Different CNN, as long as I'm U.S., was the same. Debt, money supply versus GDP, population matters, but if you make GDP go up without population and without the growth, all being from government spending, without the growth, all being from government spending, you'd be fine. Yeah, actually, that's not untrue. I'm with you on that. And from what I understand, mostly it's because government spending isn't actual real spending. which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it doesn't hit the economy all at the same time, all in the same way. And at least a significant portion of government spending isn't money. It's not cash. It goes to Social Security funds. It goes, which don't always become real. They don't always become realized. It transfers between departments. Some of it's just infrastructure spending, where it transfers between departments. Some of it turns into salary over the course of 12 months. Some of it turns into supplies and spending, and they buy things and they build things and do stuff like that. But a significant portion of government spending never actually becomes money. Hard currency dollars. And in some cases, that's because they bought hard assets. They're paying debt. They're transferring between banks. It doesn't actually become a payment. It goes from account A to a company account B, and that company doesn't necessarily turn all of that into money. They turn some of it into materials for things that the government purchases, and then that stuff that the government purchases goes somewhere else. It's not all, $27 trillion of government spending, or whatever our budget is these days, doesn't actually become 27 trillion green $1 bills or 125 trillion. Is that what 27 trillion times 4 is? 125 trillion quarters. 2 times 5 is 10. 25 times 5 is 125, so 135 quarters. How about that for some math? So yeah, if you increase the budget, if you increase government spending by a certain amount, but that never happens. I guess it does happen when the GDP, or during a recession, you're supposed to increase government spending to fill the gap left when companies stop spending money and people stop spending money. It's supposed to fill the gap and put a damper on the recession. And then when the recessionary cycle ends, supposed to cut back government spending, but no, they never cut back government spending. They just stop the growth in government spending. So the economy just kind of grows back to, or the budget just grows back to where it would have been. So for 3 years, instead of growing at 10%, they grow at 15%. And then the next 3 years, instead of growing at 10%, they grow at 8%. And that gets them kind of back to where they should be had everything stayed the same. And those are just numbers I'm making up. Don't do the math on that. That's just, whatever. Anyway. All right, last 10. What's up? Oops. Boop. It's paper or digital. What matters is the speed it moves through the economy. Oh, it does matter if it's paper or digital. But that's not that. No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. If it's paper or digital, I mean if it's real or not real is what I'm talking about. Because if it never actually becomes money, if it just moves from one account to the other, this account to this account, this account to this account, and never actually goes into circulation, then it's money that's been spent, but it's not money that goes into circulation. Which is why stocks aren't real money, because a lot of that money that goes into investments has never been spent, or is never going to be spent. It's just going to always be in an investment somewhere. It's going to be in an investment fund, and then if it gets collateralized, then it gets turned into money. But a permanent trust is always going to have a balance of funds in that permanent trust, because it's a permanent trust. That's not money that's in circulation. That's just money that's been, it's a cash sink. It's a financial sink for the economy. In the same way you have heat sinks for your computers to draw heat out of the system, these are financial sinks, monetary sinks, like housing. I have my house has gone up in value by whatever, $150,000 since I bought it, $200,000. I don't have $200,000 in my pocket. That's not money. That's not value to me. I mean, it's value. It goes into like the family's net worth, whatever. I could collateralize it. I could turn it into actual money. I could take a second mortgage out on the value of my home that's gone up. But that's a financial sink into the economy. If I decide to sell my house and buy another house, well, all that money from my house goes into the new house. I never actually see that money. It's not coming out of my house and going into circulations. I'm not selling my house and going and buying a bunch of CDs and records. You know, I'm not blowing up the used music market with my big fancy house money. That's not money until I realize it, unless I collateralize it somehow. It's a financial sink. Like, we've gotten wealthier, but it's not affecting the economy unless the taxing the taxing authority says, hey, your house is worth another $150,000 now. Your property tax has just gone up. Now you owe property taxes on the value of your house, because that's what property taxes do in the state of Texas. I don't know what they do in your part of the world, but they're like, we're going to cut taxes, and the value of your house just doubled. Like, that's great. Ta-da! That's great. You cut taxes from 6% to 4%, but then the price of my house, the value of my house magically doubled, even though I didn't do anything. So now the taxing authority on a $100,000 house, instead of getting $6,000, is now, or instead of getting $8,000, is now getting $14,000. Thanks. That's great. You could have just not done anything. That would have been super cool. And that's called a regressive tax, boys and girls, where normal people's taxes go up and we get fucked just by doing nothing. Yep. We got a 5% pay raise, but your property taxes went up 100%. Anyway, but yeah, that's what I mean. Like non-circulating funds, and then that money goes to the county. The county sends it to, or the school district in some cases. That money goes to the county tax authority. Then it gets transferred to the school district, and the school district builds a new school with half of that money. So the money I spend goes from, let's say it doesn't go up to 14. Let's say it goes from 8 to 10. My tax payment goes to $10,000, but that extra $2,000 doesn't go into, actually into the economy. In some cases it does. Let's say half of that goes into actually paying for teachers and supplies for schools and all that other stuff. But the other half of it goes into pension funds and just disappears into the investment world. Doesn't go into the spending world at all. It doesn't circulate through the economy. And then the other half of that goes to paying vendors and suppliers, where the money goes into their business and then circulates into the economy through them. So a portion of it goes to their business, goes to their businesses, and then they turn around and turn a portion of that into the money that circulates through the economy. So a portion of government spending never circulates into the actual spending economy. A significant portion of it does. Probably, I don't know, 90% of government spending goes back into circulation somehow, either through salaries or the compounding effect of other vendors spending that money through government contractors, but a not insignificant. I'm guessing something like 10% at least. I mean, we know Social Security is a large portion of the federal budget. The amount of money that goes into the Social Security Trust Fund, rather, is a large portion of the money that goes to the feds and is, I think, counted as spending because they pay the money into the fund, right? I'm not sure how the government fund accounting works on that. But money that goes into Social Security doesn't go into circulation. That's not currency. A portion of it, obviously, goes back out to people. But as of now, is there still a surplus in the fund? Damn, there's still a surplus in the fund. It still takes in more than it spends out, I think. Can't remember. Anyway, China and Japan are certainly examples of massive debt to GDP, wildly drawn through. Yep. Paper or digital. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the glories of our giant, complicated economic system that we have. Our giant economic beast that is what it is. There's these spending sinks. I mean, when they were pumping all that money into the banks after the 2008 collapse of the financial system, that money, massive spending, $700 billion, something like that, massive spending that went to banks and it went to refinance the banks. That was not going into circulation. That's one of the reasons why that wasn't so. Marvin Slingers, what's up, my man? That's one of the reasons why that $700 billion wasn't nearly as inflationary as the money that was spent at the end of the pandemic to keep human beings from starving. Because that money that was going to the banks wasn't going into circulation. It was going into the reserves of the banks, and the banks were just sitting on that money, and they weren't loaning it back out. And they were recapitalizing themselves. And some of it went back out. They paid their bonuses. They paid the shit out of their executives, that's for sure. But they weren't loaning the money out. It wasn't going back into circulation. That money was just going right from one account to the other, and it was just sitting there. I know. I worked in a bank. We didn't loan anything out for ever. For a good long time. They're like, yeah, we want to make loans if your customers are loan worthy, but here's the criteria for being loan worthy. They have to glow like Moses coming off of Mount Sinai and be without sin like Jesus Christ himself. Like, gee, so y'all don't want to make any fucking loans? They're like, oh, no. We want to make loans. We just want to make loans to people who don't need the money. Like, well, all right. So, no loans then. Yeah, we're going to focus on fee-based income. All right. That's how we'll do it then. So we focused on fee-based income as opposed to interest-based income. So what am I doing right now? I'm doing this. Putting the labels on the bottles. We filled the bottles up earlier. And now I'm labeling the bottles. This is the tail end of the process. I've got about 20 more labels to put on. I'm getting hungry. What time is it? 2:30? Okay. I had a little bit of lasagna for lunch. I'm going to go home after we box these up. I'm going to go home and fire up the grill. It feels like a swamp out there. It is 93 degrees. It was 93 degrees when I got here, and the humidity is about 85. It feels dog breath is the description that I've heard one person use. It feels like dog breath out there. It's awful. Everything's lush and green because we had the rains recently. And with the rains, everything is lush and green and just full of life and water and wetness. And then when that sun hits it, all that dewy wetness just kind of evaporates out and stays right about this high off the ground. And it feels like you're walking through a sauna. It is nasty. But that's why I'm wearing shorts and not long pants, because it is warm out there. I got my fan running and my door open, and I'm going to have AC in here very soon. I'm going to send a message to my landlord and say, hey, you were going to do an AC unit? How about the same AC unit that you got in your space? We got about the same space. I need 2-3 heads on that little AC unit. And 1, 2, and I'll pay for 2 more. Get 2 more heads to point this way. Try and keep this space cool. And then we can get some work done in June and July in this bitch. Yeah, boys. All right, we are down to our last 8. 7. No, that's not right. Yeah, 7. But yeah, the difference between 2008 and 2020 was when they spent, I don't know how much they spent on direct payments to families over the last quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2021. But let's say it was $300 billion. If they spent $300 billion, I don't think it was, it may not, I don't even think it was that much. Going directly to the families, that money went right back into buying milk, bread, eggs. All that money went into the economy, like our economy. Like it was last ditch effort to stop us from starving, right? Still weren't working. We were still trying to make ends meet. Maybe they were trying to buy votes. Whatever. That last payment was like $1,500, right? It was supposed to be $2,000, but I think they cut it back to $1,500. But all that money was going to us to just have. And that money stayed in circulation. And it goes into circulation. And then boom. 4 months later, 12 months later, however long it was, we have 8% inflation. Like inflation that we hadn't seen since 1980. It's insane. And prices go up. It's a year-long process. The price is going up. And everybody's freaking out, losing their goddamn minds. Where are my boxes at? I guess I've used all my boxes. All right. I need boxes. I can do that. But yeah, all that money goes back into circulation, and all of a sudden you have money in circulation, and then boom, inflation. But it was also combined with a contraction on the supply side of the equation. I mean, if our factories in China had still been pumping out stuff, we wouldn't have had such bad. I don't think we would have had such bad inflationary pressures. But again, as I've said in the past, I make whiskey, so this is all stuff as I've read it and understand it. Do not consider this to be a master class or even a undergrad class, because I will be the first to admit I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm happy to learn from people who are, because those, people who know, because this shit just fascinates me. But also, this is part of the original thesis was we don't get to have these conversations with well-meaning people, because even well-meaning people have their algorithm completely fucked. And you start talking about stuff like this, and then they say something like, "Oh, what about George Soros?" And then you just want to punch him in the face. 2, 3, 4, 5 cases. Boom. Because the algorithm doesn't know that doesn't know the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The algorithm doesn't know the difference between you curiously looking up information about what is a 9/11 truther and you actively researching if jet fuel can melt steel and, refuting the government narrative. The algorithm doesn't know. The algorithm is remarkably stupid when it comes to stuff like this. The algorithm doesn't know if you're looking up how did Timothy McVeigh blow up the Murrah Federal Building. If you look that up, it doesn't know if you're doing research into the story or if you're doing research into how you can do it. The algorithm just doesn't know. And if you plug that in, they're like, oh, does he want to also know about militias in the area? Does he also want to know about the melting point of steel versus the burning point of jet fuel? Does he also want to know about crisis actors at Sandy Hook? Like, no, algorithm, I don't want to know any of that shit. I don't want to know any of that nonsense. I just wanted to know what kind of bomb it was because I'm doing research, because I'm curious. And they're like, oh, okay. Did you know about the other shooters on the grassy knoll? Like, no, leave me alone, algorithm. Please and thank you. You are a monster, and nobody likes you. This is not why Al Gore invented the internet. But well-meaning people, that's what I always want to try when I do my happy hours, at least. I want to try to have a well-meaning conversation. I want it to be a place where we can at least participate in the same reality, which is why I make things a discussion, not a debate, because we're not going to debate whether or not the earth is round. We can discuss why people think it's flat and just how stupid they really are. But we're not going to discuss we're not going to debate whether or not it's actually flat, because it's not. These are not debatable points. These are discussion topics. Not debates. So when we come back with our happy hours, and I do a story, or I do the monologue on who is George Soros, it's not going to be to find out about the myth. It's going to be to find out about the man and why this stupid boogeyman persists. If I do a happy hour on why women choose the bear, it's not going to be something about whether they're right or how stupid the choice is and how dumb the stupid meme is and has always been. Because it's a dumb meme, let's face it. It's going to be acknowledging the reality that, hey, chicks have finally figured out what men have known all along, that men are dangerous. And in some cases, men are finding out how that presents. Because let's face it, if you're walking down the street, if you're walking down just a fucking footpath in your local city park and you see a guy coming your way, you are immediately on guard. We know this intuitively, right? We should know this intuitively. I mean, how often is this a movie trope? Right? Guy's on the horse going down the road, sees another guy on the road, stops. Hello, stranger. What can I do for you? Well, I'm going to need you to get off that horse because I'm taking it. I mean, that is a common movie trope. Right? Right. don't stop and help that guy. It's harder to get help as a man on the side of the road by yourself because we're dangerous. We are dangerous, and people know that we're dangerous. It's inherent to our systems. I don't think it's inherent to our DNA, but I really do think it's inherent to our culture. That might be safe to say. All right, last thing up is I take a box label and put it on the box. Just like that. And these printed one label to a sheet, which is a pain in the ass because it wastes half a sheet. But I can use these sheets for other things, so that's fine. I'm not throwing out the one sheet pages, but I put one on each side of the box. But see, the salty other half of that stupid, oh yeah, choose the bear meme is I would choose the bear too. If I saw a dude on a trail or a bear on a trail, I would choose the bear. What person in their right mind wouldn't? You know the bear's motives. He's hungry, or he's not hungry. He probably doesn't want to mess with you. He probably just wants you to move along. Don't get between the mama bear and her cubs. There's simple rules to live by. But, we don't have a set of rules to live by to make sure that the strange loner doesn't follow you back to your cabin and murder your body. And there's a reason why that sentence exists, because it's a common trope and a not uncommon, I wouldn't go so far as say common occurrence, but it's not an uncommon occurrence. So much so that it's not a thing that people think about. It's a common enough occurrence that it's part of our national psyche that weird loners follow people back to their hotels and murder them. I would choose the bear too. And that's not feminism, that's practicality. Why wouldn't you choose the bear? Never, in all the things that I've found, well, let me see if I can phrase this properly. I've never found a dead body. That's fair to say. Never come across a dead human body. But most of the things that I have found dead, their death has been caused by a person. And that may sound alarming, like, oh my God, how many dead things have you found? I hunt as well. So, I'm well aware that man is capable of killing things because I've done it. Oh my God, he's a killer. Yes, I've shot birds out of the sky. Chill out. Calm the F down. I've eaten everything that I've ever shot. In the case of the rabbits, I've eaten everything that I've ever held in my hands to murder, kill, whatever, however you want to describe it. All right. That is today's task. I've done what I wanted to do. 5 cases of straight whiskey. 5, 10, 15. Average value of, that's about $3,000 worth of product there. Average value of about $200 per case. 150, 100, 210, 225 ish. That's work. That's good work. All right. Why is this off? Pause it. Okay, get back to showing. All right. Let's knock this down a little bit. I'm going to put it on picture-in-picture. 2730. We're at 2735 subscribers, I believe. 2736. Cheers to our new subscribers. Let's put this in picture. Is that what I want? Yeah, there I am down in the little corner. That's me. Hello. Boop, 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 boop. Make me smaller. Make that bigger. Yeah, that's the main event here. Okay. I am here. This is the end. This is the end of it. I'm gonna go home and I'm going to make lunch. We're gonna have, or not dinner. I'm gonna not lunch, dinner. I'm gonna go home and make dinner. But before I do that, we're going to have a parting shot. Let me pull one right out of the vat here. Yeah, let's go with this one, I think. Right here. Hello. This is what I was bottling up today. Take a full shot. My throat's a little sore. I'm worried that I'm coming down with something, but I hope it's allergies. I do have one more box. I have one last thing to do today. And I think, I guess we can do that before I leave. So I'm going to set the parting shot here. Parting shot goes there. We can do this one last thing to do before I leave. I've got to fill these 2 barrels up with water. And wet them, soak them, so that they are ready to be used. So these are replacement barrels for the barrels that I had that popped. Let's get back to the big camera here. There's the big angle. So this is the packaging in which my barrels come. They're only 5 gallons, so they're not particularly huge. But I also need to take measurements on those barrels. That's fine. So here are the barrels. It's the barrel itself right here. And the barrel stand, like so. I had 2 barrels that I bought, and the barrels failed. They swelled up, and their straps popped. Oh, okay. They swelled up, and their straps popped. So they sent me replacement barrels. It's a really good company, Redhead Barrels. They take good care of their clients, among whom I am one. And I have no problem bragging about them because they are a good group of folks. They make good products, and I enjoy doing business with them. But there you go. 5-gallon barrel. I need to fill it up with water. And my water tank is over there. So I'm actually going to, I'm not going to go out of the water tank with it. I'm just going to use the water hose. And there we go. Plastic is off. And we're set. There's that one. And I'm just going to set these right here. And grab the water hose to fill these up. I need to have these filled up for at least a week. It usually takes about 3 days for them to stop leaking and for the staves to swell into place so that they are so that they're secure and not going to break or not going to leak and leak all my whiskey onto the floor. The longer you let them soak, the less alcohol you lose to the wood itself. Because the actual wood will be fully soaked by the water, and that means less water will go into the barrel, will saturate into the barrel when you fill it up with a. That's not good. Huh. That's bad. Okay. That's bad. Okay. That's bad. Great. They also come with this little funnel thing, which I never use, but in this case I am going to use it because I have water spraying all over the place. And goddamn, this water's hot, or at least warm. But it's cooling off, so that's good. And one cool thing about these barrels, as they're filling up, if I push the head of my hose right up to the hole, that's dirty. I can actually see the air being pushed out of the various cracks in the barrel as it fills up, because it's mostly airtight now, but it's not completely airtight. It takes that extra little bit of swelling to make it completely airtight. And then after about 4 days, so when I come back on Friday, I'll be able to fill this up. I'll drain all the barrels that I have and fill them up with a delicious whiskey. And then they will be ready for their summer aging. And winter bottling. Now, summer aging and spring bottling, because they'll probably come out of the barrel in May of next year. Jesus, it's taking forever. Come on. And usually I fill these up using my bottle filler, because I'm filling up about 35 gallons at a time. But right now I'm just doing 10, so it's only going to take me a minute to do this. Whoops. Almost full. Are we there yet? Very nearly. All right, we're there. Okay, that one's full. The other thing about these barrels is once you put the cork in, the bung into the bung hole, once you put the bung into the bung hole, it creates a very nearly airtight seal on the barrel itself. So any small cracks that are in the wood, any small cracks that are still in between the staves of the barrel itself, will be anything leaking out of the wood of the barrel or soaking into the wood itself will create a vacuum in the barrel, and the cavitation rather will create a vacuum in the barrel, and then the barrel will remain airtight. So even if there is some leakage, the way these are designed is if something leaks out, it has to come back in, you know, just like any other vessel. If the fluid leaks out, then somewhere else the fluid has to come in to replace that. So if you have a slight leak, it'll actually seal itself up with because of the vacuum that it creates. Which is a fascinating little engineering design for wooden barrels of any sort. Which is why if you create a pinhole leak in a barrel, it may leak a little bit out at a time, but it's not going to leak. It's not going to drain. Almost certainly won't drain all the way out unless it has a second leak. 2 leaks are bad. Air can go in one, liquid can come out the other. But 1 leak is very rarely a bad thing because if it's a small enough leak, it has to let air in before any more can come out. And I have to get a new spray nozzle because this one is just about giving up the ghost. It's leaking. It's leaking. So that's cool. I'll just get a cheap one. One of the basic metal ones that never breaks. I swear my parents had that metal hand sprayer that they had for 20 years. Ah! See, look. It's spraying all over the damn place. Can you see that? I have an electric box over there on the ground. It shouldn't be there. Need to get one that's waterproof. It'll be a little bit safer in this place. Ah, come on. Almost there. All right. And that's that. That's the second task that I want to get done today. Put the bung in the bung hole. There we go. And now those will sit there for a few days. I'm going to actually turn the water off, which is something that I have not done much in the past, but I'm actually going to physically turn this off so that it is not running. Drain the pressure out of the hose. And when next time I come in, I'm going to replace that nozzle. All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, it is that time of the show where we sign out. Picture in picture, that's me. It has been a joy. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun talking with y'all. I'll see y'all next time. It won't be long. I've got some really cool projects I'm working on. I got me a laser etcher, and I want to show y'all how it works. But we'll do that another day. Cheers to all y'all fine folks. Happy Memorial Day. Make this one count. Make them all count. Make this world a better place. That's how you honor those who fell to protect our democracy. You continue to protect it and make the world a better place. Cheers.